The Spirit helps us in our weakness. That's what our patron Saint Paul writes in the letter to Romans today that Lettieri read. If there's anything from this sermon I want you to remember, I hope it's that phrase. The Spirit helps us in our weakness. So, what is the weakness that you and I might need some help with today? Where are we in need? Where could we use a boost? Where might we be feeling a little weary, fragile? It can be tender to admit, but we might need a little extra strength and support. What might that be for us as we came into church today? Today is a great feast day of the church. It's the Sunday of Pentecost, when we remember the gift of the Holy Spirit to the disciples and to the church and the world. Come, Holy Spirit, help us in our weakness. One of the great names for the Holy Spirit is Comforter. Where might you and I need some comfort today? Maybe we're feeling a little exhausted or worn down. Maybe even a little hopeless about our world. Let me tell you about someone in our parish who've been going through some grief and loss. And there was certainly a torrent of tears and sadness. That didn't just go away. This person would also tell you that in the midst of it, they sensed God's Spirit helping heal their wounded heart. And it's the kind of thing that came through some different directions. It came through their faith. They reached out to God. They prayed, Holy Spirit, I need your help. Also, they would tell you one of the ways they felt the Holy Spirit was through other people. Through their kindness and hugs and listening ears. They felt consoled and cared for. They sensed that was the Spirit of God at work. Come, Holy Spirit, comfort us in our need. Another name that Jesus uses for the Holy Spirit in John's Gospel is kind of an odd word, Paraclete. I don't know if you've heard that one. This Greek word Paraclete, the literal translation is called alongside. And so in ancient Israel, one of the things, a paraclete you would have with you when you were in a difficult legal situation. A paraclete would go stand next to you in that tense moment before a judge. That's what a paraclete did. So how do you translate that into English? Sometimes Bibles will use helper, counselor, advocate. So when we might find times in our lives of struggle or trouble, could be legal trouble, more likely relationships or spiritual turmoil, to know that the Holy Spirit is alongside of us. That's some of the good news that we can hang on today, is God will never leave our side, especially in times of difficulty. Come, Paraclete, come alongside of us. Jesus says that one of the other things that the Spirit will do is the Spirit will lead us into all truth. Oh, how we need that. It seems like we live in a society where truth can be hard to come by. We're in an age of seemingly endless falsehoods and lies. They come so fast, we don't even know. You can't even correct them. Politicians and commercials and the internet spread deceit, downright fabrications with ease. It's maddening, leaving us at times weak, with frustration and confusion. Hard to know what is the truth. Now, none of us has the whole truth, but we don't lose hope because there's this promise that the Holy Spirit is here to help us. Now, the place to start for the Holy Spirit is probably not for the Spirit to sort out all the facts in our culture. That's not probably the place to start. Spirit wants to help us find the big truths of our faith and turn to those. Truths like we have a powerful Creator God, the truth of Jesus and His love and overwhelming forgiveness for us. We need the Spirit to guide us to know and take in those truths. And yes, it could be that as we actively question and search out, it's part of our work, we seek the truth. God gave us these brains for us to use. The Spirit of God can help lead us to truths that our minds and our hearts can rely on. Come, Holy Spirit, guide us into the truth. Another pain in our world right now is division among people. Maybe it's always been, but boy, in our world and our nation and our communities, maybe even our families. And so it's really kind of wonderful to hear that reading from Acts today. Maybe it gives us a little hope. That the context was 50 days after Easter, the disciples were in the holy city of Jerusalem, but they weren't the only people there. There were people from around the world in this important city, people from different countries and languages. And it's wonderful to hear that list, Cappadocians and Libyans and Cretans, all around the world. The Holy Spirit comes among the disciples and rests on them, and it breaks down barriers. Language and ethnicity are not going to divide this community of Christ. Not going to do it. The Spirit helped different people be understood. It's a vision of the church. Be a church of many backgrounds and perspectives. Of course, the differences are real among us, and yet we can be united. The Holy Spirit desires people to connect, to hear each other. The Spirit can even challenge us not to fear those who are different, to catch a vision of cooperation and connection being God's dream for humanity. Come, Holy Spirit, break down the barriers among us. When Paul writes in that letter to Romans about the Spirit helping us in our weakness, he's talking about it in a particular context. And the context is prayer. I love the way that St. Paul admits to the struggle that prayer can be. I don't know if you catch what he says. He says, we do not know how to pray as we ought. He doesn't say we do know. He says, we don't really know how to pray just right. And I can tell you, after all the books and workshops, I've taught classes on prayer. And at times I still wonder, am I doing this right? Dealing with distractions, stumbling over words, and unrealistic expectations. Paul says, don't worry. The Spirit helps us in our weakness. He says the Spirit is going to be in us in size too deep for words. He seems to be saying, just our desire to pray, as we want to do that, to try to reach out to God, that's the Spirit at work in us and in our hearts in deeper ways than we know. As we imperfectly and awkwardly offer our thoughts and prayers to God, Holy Spirit, help us to pray. Another thing the Holy Spirit is known for is blessing. An example of that is during the Eucharist, you'll see there's a moment where the priest prays for the Spirit to be on the bread and wine, and then also that the Spirit would be on us, on the people. And in that way, we might say some of the work of the Holy Spirit is to make ordinary things holy, so that bread and wine become a sacrament, a vehicle for Christ to be among us, for us to receive. The gifts of God for the people of God. And of course, not just the bread and wine as the Spirit at work. We, ordinary, imperfect people, we are made holy. The Spirit is working in us to convict us, to change us, transform us as we can be open to it right now. Certainly we are holy, God's holy people, but we're invited to become more holy, to use our gifts for the church and the world, to inspire us in our priorities and values, to line up with Christ's kingdom. We aren't finished in this process. We are God's sacred people, but we ask, come Holy Spirit, bless us. The Holy Spirit is active in our world today. That's the good news we proclaim. Spirit can give energy and passion, can light a fire within us. And the Spirit is looking out for us when you and I are needy or frustrated or fragile. He can give us strength when we might falter. Come, Holy Spirit, help us in our weakness.